Good day. This is the high-level thinking course for the retail manager. Now I say course, it's really just a small training video, just some things, actual practical things that I have learned and that I also need to remind myself of to apply. This is for retail owners of retail businesses especially, though it will apply to any other area of business as well. Also managers and supervisors who just want to take it to the next level. At the moment, the intention behind recording this video is for our business and for our managers currently to have it in their training and to help us all get to a higher level of thinking. So where is your thinking? Because I think it is time for us to just take our thinking up to boss level and not think of in terms of small transactional activities. So we're trying to get to a point where we can make decisions and take actions that have a strong positive impact in our business. The first thing or principle that I want to discuss is that we need to be thinking of what is actually going to happen in the real world. That's the place where we live every day, and it's definitely the place where we do business every single day. It's very easy to think up rules and policies and procedures and put all kinds of things in place or try to do things, but we need to keep in mind what the actual human reaction is going to be to it. We need to make sure that it is actually going to work in a physical environment where we do business. In other words, that the policy is going to bring about the behavior that we want to, or that the procedure does in fact bring the check or balance that we want to. So what I'm trying to say is, when you do something or when you put something in place or you make a decision or you say anything, you've got to keep in mind that tomorrow and the day after, next week or next month, there's actually going to be a real person who needs to come into contact with the decision that you've made or with what you've said or with what you've put in place. And that needs to have an outcome that you are aware of, that you have planned for, and that you actually want and desire. So the other thing that I like to say that I can see the future, not as a joke or as something spiritual or mental, but you know what? The future is right there. And that's what I mean when I say the decisions that we make need to work in the real world. We can see what is going to happen tomorrow. We know what is going to be the outcome of what the decisions are that we make. So we need to anticipate what is going to happen and prepare for it. The most apt example of this is in communicating with other managers or with staff members. For example, if you make a decision today that is going to have an effect tomorrow, that is going to possibly fall onto someone else, and you need to inform that person that that is going to happen. For example, if you have a person or a supplier or a meeting or someone coming through to do something the next day, and you are not going to be there, but another manager or another person is going to be having to deal with that effect, it is best that you prepare them so that when this comes, it's not a surprise and that they are ready to cope with the demands of the decision that you've made or what has been put in place. Most important things in a retail business is really planning, people, and like I said, communication, because if you do not communicate properly, then you are going to have these kinds of situations. So it is best to communicate information even in case it becomes useful later. So say to people, you know what, if this and this happens, it is about this thing. I've just spoken to so-and-so, they said they're going to come back at some point and do X, Y, and Z. That means that when that actually does happen, that the person has already got the information that they might need, and we don't need to have phone calls going back and forth and this and that. Training people is very, very important in our environment. You need to train people continuously, and you need to actually show them what to do, let them do it, and also repeat the training. Unfortunately, just telling someone to do the right thing is not going to work. For example, our training, our video training program that we are implementing has the effect of everyone at least knowing the rules and knowing the procedure. But to in actual fact get the behavior to change and people to follow the rules, we are going to have to guide them and help them in order to actually do that on a daily basis. Another thing that I like to tell people about the business, you've got to work on your business and you've got to work in your business. So every day there are things that we have to do, especially in fuel retail. We have daily recons, daily things that need to be done. Administration is really a large part of our business. And also selling our volumes every single day is actually what contributes to our growth and to our sales. So that's working in the business. That's helping the customer. That is doing the recon, doing the check, doing the things that we have to do every single day for the business to operate. As important though is working on the business. That means we need to be putting things in place that is going to make the business better tomorrow, make the daily work less in the future, and make things run easier and better in the short and long term. So that is what I'm trying to do myself, is that every single day I try to do something that makes the business better, that makes the business operate better tomorrow. So that means simplifying something, putting a procedure in place, making it so that small tasks don't necessarily have to be repeated, automating things, this kind of thing. Another thing that I try and do, and it is hard, is to take action immediately. If a challenge or something arises, I like to try and get it sorted out immediately. There's very little value of putting something on a to-do list and having it there for months or years or even a couple of days. Most of the time what you're going to be doing in a month or a year, you can do on that very single day, in that moment when the challenge arises. So it's best to sort something out immediately, make the decision, get the job done, and get on with what is important. Speaking of important, it is also very important to distinguish what is the difference between important and urgent. So some things are important. The daily work is important. The administration is important. Our accounting is important. But urgent is always a customer issue or some kind of emergency or something that absolutely has to be sorted out. So these things you will do first because they are urgent. The problem is though that you can't just do things that are urgent or that are due shortly and not do the important stuff. The important stuff you have to schedule and plan and get done. But unfortunately, when something comes up that is urgent, it takes precedence over what is actually a daily task or things that have to be done but are not quite as urgent as those things. So as from a customer point of view, it's always important to look into the business as if you are a customer. Don't just look at the business as a manager or as your place of work. You need to have the mentality of a customer when you drive up to a business or when you walk into the business, and actually focus on their experience and actually understand how they are impacted by the structure and the culture and the procedures and everything of our business. In other words, what I'm saying is that the customer experience needs to be clear and easy and coherent and understandable. So when you just walk from the door straight to your office and you miss the entire business in between, you've missed the entire point already. So the other thing that I like to discuss is maximum accountability. I believe in taking responsibility for things, and when something goes wrong, the unfortunate truth is that even if it happens at a ground level with direct customer interaction, the fault for it lies higher up the chain. If something is going wrong in the business, it is your fault. It is your problem to solve, and having not put something in place to prevent it is why you need to take action and make sure it is firstly resolved now and also prevented in the future. In terms of profitability, it's important to think short and long term. The business does need to have profit in the short term. The business needs to cover its expenses in the short term, but also the business needs to grow in the long term. And sometimes you do have to choose one or the other. But the long term is very, very important, and you will see many successful businesses in this world will actually place the long term first at the cost of short term gains and short term profits. So keep in mind that sometimes we do make a decision that is only going to show fruit, or bear fruit rather, in the long term. Right. When dealing with a customer or in any kind of situation where there is a transaction, always make sure that you secure the revenue. In other words, get the money into the till or into the bank. So what I'm saying is that if there's a problem with a customer or something like that, make sure that you get as much of the money for that transaction in the bank immediately before the customer leaves and before anything else happens. Try and get the money. In other words, if a customer, for example, in our business, puts in 100 Rand worth of fuel and then only has 70 Rand on them, get the 70 Rand. If a customer is there with an incorrect card and, for example, a fleet card that doesn't match their vehicle, swipe the card and rather reverse it later so that there is actually revenue that has been secured. Transaction records are also very, very important. When you do something, make notes on it, save as many documents as you can. If someone is given money or given a product or something like that, it's best to get them to sign it and then keep the record of it. Many a time I've been in a situation where a transaction is long in the past and some query around it comes, and now suddenly you don't remember what the payment was for or this and that. So we keep invoices, we keep credit notes, we keep signed documents, and we keep proof of payments, these kinds of things, to make sure that we don't later have to repay something or something like that. When you deal with anyone in any situation, take down the details, or at least take down a name. Even if you phone a multinational company with a call center of thousands of people and you know that you will never speak to that person again, still take the name. Even take the reference number. But even, I beg your pardon, also take the name. Make sure that you know who you've spoken to and who you will be speaking to in the future so that you can actually get the result that you need. So if anyone comes to you with a problem, even if that problem isn't your problem, it is something completely different, take down the name and number, because just now there's some kind of misunderstanding and later you are going to wish that you are able to contact that person. When you interact with people, especially staff members, it's best to formalize that communication. In other words, what we've implemented, for example, is our communication book. When we give an instruction or a verbal warning or something like that, it's just written down in the book and signed, or even if it's not signed, it is dated so that there is some record of what has been discussed with individual people. Checklists. This is something that we use a lot, but a checklist only works if you actually use it and you actually follow up on it. But it is a very, very powerful tool, and it is a very, very important thing if we are ever going to take our business forward. When there is a matter that you are sorting out, especially involving an outside person or an outside company, make sure that you're following up. Following up is very, very important, and make sure that you keep a record of what you're following up on, when you spoke and what they said, so that you can actually get the result that you require. In the retail business, it is important to check absolutely everything and double check absolutely everything. We need to make sure that we actually have our finger on the pulse of every area of our business. It's tough and it's hard, but you can only expect what you inspect. So talking about these things, behavior and habit is very, very important. It's important in our daily lives, and it is making sure that we actually put things in place that we are doing every single day and continuously and regularly in order to get the results that we require. When you talk to people, make sure you listen very carefully as well. Remember what they said. I take notes of absolutely everything, otherwise I know that I will forget. Right, how do we make money? We have to look at three things, and we have to keep all three balls in the air at the same time. Number one is turnover. We need to make sure that sales are coming in and sales are increasing. We need to have a look at our profit margins. We need to make sure that the money that is coming in, that we are at least keeping a fair share of it, enough to cover the third element, and that is costs. We need to manage our costs. We need to fight to pay less and to save as much money as we can. However, no good business strategy focuses on only one of these three elements. You have to have the sales, you have to have the profit margins, and you have to manage the costs. If you just focus on the one at the expense of the other, you're going to be running back and forth and then struggling. For example, if you want to increase turnover, you can just slash your prices, but then you're not going to have enough money left to cover your costs. If you want to make your profit higher, you can increase your prices, but then your sales are going to go down and your profit will also decrease. You can slash your costs, but then you're not going to have the things that you need in the business in order to make the turnover or the profit. For example, we can switch the electricity off, and then we don't have an electricity bill at the end of the month. But that doesn't work, because then we are not going to be able to do business. So the balancing act when it comes to these three things is very, very important in our business. I want to talk a bit about safety. Thing about safety, HES or health and safety, it's very annoying. And you've got to always cross your T's and dot your I's and keep record and this and that. But it's very important to think of safety not just as a compliance thing or something that we have to do. When you operate in the business or when you do something, it's actually important to make sure that it is physically safe, and then also that their records and these things are kept for compliance purposes. But the thing with health and safety is actually to make sure that the business is safe. Rather fail at the compliance element of health and safety than the actual health and safety. But do the effort and cover the whole spectrum, and you won't have any problem with audits or the law or this and that. But most importantly, you won't have anyone getting injured, things getting stolen, or damages happening to our precious earth. Right. For the high-level manager, what we say and what we do is actually the unwritten policy of our company. So it's important to keep an example, or to remain an example for the other employees. And as far as energy level in the company is concerned, unfortunately, those below you will apply the same energy level as you, minus about 30%. So from the top of the business, if we're giving 70%, our managers will probably give 40%, and our frontline employees will give 10%. That is why we need to do 160% at the top. Our managers need to give 130%, and that is how our bottom line employees can give 100%. When dealing with a customer or dealing with anyone in any negotiation or anything like that, it's important to always keep your cool. This is a hard one for me, but whenever you talk to someone, make sure that you remain courteous and respectful, no matter how absolutely bonkers crazy the thing is that they are saying or doing. Even if they are creating a massive hazard or something like that, it is important to always remain calm and speak in a calm tone of voice. Never try and apply humor, and never ever try and be funny or talk down to someone or show any kind of disrespect. When we install policies or procedures or rules in our company, it's important to understand that any change that you make in a company can be reversed. Also, any change that you make will never ever be perfect. We do not live in a perfect world. As such, if we put a policy or procedure in place, at some point that thing is going to have an exception, or there is going to be some kind of circumstance where it is not going to work. So when we construct our policies and procedures, it's important for us to make them as close to 100% effective as possible. As close to 100% effective as possible, and then make sure that things are in place to deal with the last couple of percentage points of ineffectiveness of the policy. This job that you're busy with, this activity that you do on a daily basis, why are you doing it, and why is there not someone else already capable of doing it? It's important to delegate. It's important to always learn, but also always teach. Make sure that you are always mentoring someone or bringing someone else in the business up, so that tomorrow, the day after, they can take things and make your job easier or become more valuable to the company. We like our company to operate as a university. So in other words, we want to be a stepping stone for people to make a better future for themselves. So you need to always be teaching someone what you do. When you're busy with something, explain it to someone below you so that they can see why you're doing what you're doing, and also understand better what is going on and what is required, and then also what they can do in order to improve their work and create themselves better opportunities in our company. It's important to double check yourself when you are doing work. Always double check it. Maybe have someone else double check it. We do make mistakes, and it is easier if you try and avoid them. The 4 functions of management is an age-old management theory, but it's important to know that the manager is supposed to plan, organize, lead, and control. In other words, when you engage in your work, it is important to plan beforehand, because as they say, failing to plan is planning to fail. It's important to organize and make sure that all of the people and resources are in place for whatever needs to happen. It's important that you take the lead and drive the process in order for it to actually happen. And at the end of the day, you need to monitor or control it to make sure that it is captured correctly, it happens according to policies and procedure, and that key learnings are carried forward. And also, obviously, that the job has been done. Again, I've mentioned the delegation phase, or the delegation imperative. It is important to give other people the responsibility. You have people below you. It's important to use them and get a return on the money that actually gets paid to them. So give them work, but also give them the support to do it. And this will help with what I discussed earlier as well, to always train and to always learn. The other thing with most tasks, it's good to just start and get it done with. Get going, and even half implemented is always better than having a whole plan in your head. Just get going, get the job done, and or just at least get it started, and then you'll see what else you need to get it going. We tend to want to formulate an entire perfect plan in our minds, and then put a perfect thing together and have it be absolutely wonderful and working by the time we implement it. Unfortunately, the best practice is just to get it going and just to figure it out while you're going on. Like I said, most business decisions are actually reversible, and most things, once you get going and you see what is actually required, you often will find that it is not what you originally thought. Right. What I like to do is I put the hard tasks on my list for the day, and I like to do them first. So I just push through, try and be tough on myself, and get things done. If you're looking at a list of things that you need to do today, and there are 2 or 3 of those things that you are not comfortable with, or that you don't feel like, or that are going to be hard, you're probably looking at your top revenue generating activities, or you're probably looking at the urgent things or very, very important things that are going to make your job easier in the future or sort out serious problems in the present. So just push through and get those things done. Always keep on moving to the next target and the next target. Don't just reach a level ever and be complacent and happy with where you are. Always set your sight higher when you carry on. You know what? I said now, start with those big things on your list. The big things are the big things, but in business, the little things are also big things. Make sure that you get the details, that you get the small things actually right, and that those minor things that take something from 100% to 110 or even 150% actually get done, because that extra 10% or 20% is actually just the 1% that's been done right. So try and get the little things right as well as the big things, but don't ever get caught in the little things and leave the big things for last, because the big things are always spending your time on things that generate revenue and profit. Right. Very important thing that you need to think for yourself, and that I'm definitely not going to solve in my little presentation here today, is you need to think, why are you coming to work every day? What are you doing? And why do you want to actually achieve these goals? Figure it out for yourself. Most of us are going to be working for our families, and it's good to have that sense of purpose, whether or not it is in or outside the business, but make sure that you actually have a reason for getting up and doing these things in the morning. Just the last couple of points. Always be optimizing. Like I said earlier, do not ever miss an opportunity to make a routine task faster. If you can automate something or make something go quicker, especially the smaller silly little tasks that we have to do that take up a lot of time. If you can take something that took 10 minutes today and make it be 5 minutes tomorrow, and 5 minutes the day after, and 5 minutes the day after, instead of 10 minutes, you've already saved 15 minutes before the end of the week. So imagine then how much you're saving in a week after that, or the month after that, or the year after that. So that's why I say always be optimizing, always work on the business as well as in it. Try and improve every day. Make sure that you are always learning, but keep your eyes on the basics. You know what? If you can get the basics right, you're probably going to be doing very, very well. Like I said earlier, a lot of people try and achieve absolutely amazing things and get every detail spot on, but you know what? They just don't focus on the basics. And in a retail business, the basics are important. Merchandising, customer service, stock availability, these kinds of things. So when you engage in our business every single day, you need to be thinking of income, generating income. You need to be conscious of risk. You need to manage, mitigate, and decrease risk. And most importantly, you have to want to help that customer. I asked myself one day, do I really care? I've got a list of values, a list of objectives, and like everyone, I said, the customer is number one, the customer. But do you really care about your customer? In our business, we are there to get our customer going places. And that is what we need to do. We need to make sure that the needs of that person is actually in line with our needs. Our company is there to serve them. If we serve them, our company does well and our company will grow. I hope this helps. Just a small couple of things that I've been using to get my mind in the right place and my focus right in our business. And use these principles and take our company to the next level. Cool.